We spoke before about bringing transparency to what is quite an opaque world in terms of the business of sport, right? Podcast name. What do you think is the biggest misconception or opacity there is between fans and media and the world, and what actually happens inside a sports team?
Oh, what's the biggest one? I mean, there are a lot. I always found surprising, really, was that people, because their emotional connection with the club is so strong, when things are not going the way they want them to, they believe the people at the center of it, whether it be the players or the coach, or even, nowadays it seems like the chief executives are part of all of this, don't care. And just nothing could be further from the truth. You would have, when you're in the center of a club, you are living that football club with your whole life for years and years, in many cases. And that's everything that you care about. Outside of your family, that's everything that you care about, and trying to make that work. Look, I'm sure they exist. I'm sure there are owners who just don't care, or there are I don't think there are executives that I've met that don't care, but maybe they exist. Maybe there are coaches that don't care. I've never met one. Maybe there are players that don't care. I've never met one. I think, again, a lot of the emotion, a lot of the negative emotion is really stoked up a lot these days, because in a very dehumanizing way, because of the way modern media is, because of social media, and you want some way to express your anger and frustration at the blows to your own self-esteem that you felt you're suffering. And this is not just in sports, by the way. I see this, across many, many different areas. So you end up dehumanizing people actually who care very, very much, and imagining them in ways that their friends and the people that know them, would never recognize them. And so the discourse, the narrative, the thinking process becomes so simplified and so black and white. And I actually think it's not just in sports. I mean, I think we see this across the political spectrum as well, right? Where it becomes harder and harder actually to have good discussions about the issues, because people are just taking extreme positions of black and white. This person is good, that person is bad. And we're not talking to each other in the way we would, frankly, if we were sitting down and having a meal together or a beer together. Face to face, people are different. And we're losing that. We're losing that face to face time. And that's leading to less and less understanding, and more and more kind of destructive behaviors, I think.
With the fan bases, did you then find ways to communicate, recognizing that maybe you had to, and talking about Milan specifically, to people or groups of people sitting at the top of the club who weren't what they were used to? Were there specific ways you would communicate with them then to try and ensure that they understood the journey you were taking them on and what it would look like, hopefully, if your vision came?
Yeah, I think, I think what's really important always as a leader is to be authentic. And so I think I've always done that internally, including at Arsenal. I think I learned something new in Milan. Italian football, I think one of the really interesting things about my career as I reflect on it is I've looked at football from a league administrator position, where you're kind of in a neutral place. I've looked at it in the English context, which is, the Premier League and everything that's associated with the Premier League, but a lot of process and so on. And then you go to the Italian context, which is different again. It's a different way. You're moving to the club side, very different from the league side, but also very different between different football cultures. And so, in Italy, they are looking and experiencing the sport in an even more emotional way than they are in England. And so I think what I learned from that perspective is, if you like, internal authenticity, that I was too afraid, I think, to bring that externally in England. I felt that, Arsenal was, kind of a very stable, never complain, never explain type of place. And I was very respectful of that. with Milan, I was much more communicating on an emotional level directly with the fans. So that involved, in a way, exposing your vulnerabilities publicly. And I think that happened in a few different ways. I had cancer while I was there as well. So that was one aspect of that. So, but just
was that public? Sorry.
Yes, yeah, it was public, and I actually never considered not making it public.
Yeah.
And so all of those experiences, just opening myself up publicly a little bit more, and learning how to speak Italian was a very important part of that. Those really, I think, helped our fans understand that I cared, that we cared, and I was very, very honest about the journey we were going to go on, and very specific about the journey we were going to go on together. And I have to say, I have a really special relationship with the Milan fans. I've had some incredible, not just moments of support from San Siro, but also just personally, if I'm walking around Milan, you can feel the connection. People will forgive you a lot if they know you care. Yeah. And I think sometimes as leaders, we make the mistake, or I have made the mistake, of not fully understanding that. Because I know how much I care. I felt like I don't need to explain that, but actually you need to show that.